play GoldenEye. This is the best ever. I can't live without this thing. This is it to me. And we're coming to this idea of in this time we're talking about this verse, and we're looking at specifically today. I want to look at the idea of who is the king, right? Like, this is a pretty simple question, right? I think I get asked most of you guys, and be like, "Oh, the king, is the queen's husband or something like that." Like, you guys roughly know what a king is, right? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Sweet. I'm at least that far. So I want to kind of dig into what is the king, or sorry, who is the king? But I want to talk to you guys about a story real quick. Is that cool? Mm-hmm. So, right up at the top of this mountain, there's a place called Hume Lake. Have you guys ever heard of that place? Yeah. That's okay. So there's this place called Hume Lake. It's a Christian camp, and there's another guy who works here at Gleanings. His name is Andy. Have you guys met him yet? Yeah. Perfect. So Andy and I used to take our high school group up there and our middle school group up there, and we were kind of counselors. And one of the times, we were on our way back down, and so we're from Burbank, not too far from Long Beach, about 45 minutes hour. And so we would drive from Burbank up here and back, and during this one year, we had the idea of, let's play a game on the bus. And so does anyone know the game of Mafia? Have you guys played the game of Mafia, the card game of Mafia? She has. Okay, so has anyone not heard of Mafia, this game? Perfect. Okay, that's cool. I'm gonna teach you right now. It's pretty simple. Here's how it goes. You're gonna have a group of people, and you're gonna give them all playing cards, just regular playing cards. There's a couple of cards that are important. The first one is an ace. If you get an ace, you are a member of the mafia. If you get a king, you are the sheriff. And if you get the queen, you are the doctor. Those are the three main roles. Everything else, you're just a normal citizen. So if you're a mafia, you're trying to kill off all of everyone else and win it all. You're trying to kill the doctor and the sheriff. If you are the sheriff, you get to point at someone and say, "Hey, in the middle of the night, is that the mafia? Let me know, is that the mafia?" And the doctor, he gets to save someone. So it goes every day. There's a nighttime where everyone closes their eyes, and then the mafia goes, "Hey," they wake up and they go, "Hey, I want to kill that person." Then they close their eyes, and the sheriff comes up and he's like, "Hey, who's the mafia? Is it that guy? Is that guy? Or is that the mafia?" And then they close their eyes, and then the doctor's like, "I want to save that guy." And so there's this moderator who's kind of doing this during the middle of the night. So there we are. We're a full bus of kids. Andy's up there in the front of the bus. He's moderating. He's like talking it through this like nighttime, and then during the day when everyone votes like, "All right, who should we kill during the day?" Is that kind of roughly okay so far? You guys get it with me? Awesome. So here's how this game goes. Right at the top of Cove and 180, a lot of people know this, Cove and 180 right up here, we started this game, okay? So I'm a counselor. I spent all this time with all these kids. I've gained their trust. We've had a great time. We're about to play this game of Mafia. So they hand out all the cards, and there I am right next to one of our other counselors, Dustin. And I get the card, and I pick it up, and it's an ace of spades, and I am the mafia. I'm like, "Oh, let's do this. I'm going to do this. I have to win." So a full bus of kids. There's 40 kids in here. This game lasted from Cove and 180 all the way to the church parking lot. It was a 3.5-hour game. This game was the most epic game we've ever played. So here's how it goes. So I pick up the card, I see this ace of spades, I'm like, "Oh, let's do this, okay?" And then all of a sudden, my buddy Dustin, he drops his card on the ground, and it drops on the ground. I'm like, "Oh, I know who you are now." And so I go and I pick up the card, and I put it in front of my card, and Dustin looks at me, he's like, "Hey, what are you, man?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm just a civilian." And I show him his card. Because he just didn't even, he forgot what his card was. So there's line number one. I just start right off the bat, like, swinging with knives. And so here's Dustin, and he's like, okay, cool. We're good? You're a citizen, I'm a citizen. Let's do this. So we start off this game, a 3.5-hour game. We didn't know it was going to be that long. Who knew what it was going to be? So we started off, and it just kept going, like lie after lie. So we're going, and we're, it's getting longer and longer, and it's one of those games where I was like, oh my goodness, like, we're doing this. Like, this team of mafia is, like, slowly killing people off. And about halfway through, we realized there's, like, a separation of this bus. There's a front half of the bus, there's a back half of the bus. And we are, like, teaming up, like, okay, we're here, you guys are over there, I don't trust you, you don't trust us. And finally we realized, okay, I think the sheriff and the doctor is up there, and then we don't know what's going on back here. But I had my buddy I had my guy, Dustin. He was going to vouch for me all day long. I mean, he'd seen my card. I mean, how could he not vouch for me? He was my, like, ace in the hole. He was it. And so we keep going, and with every night it gets more and more intense, because when you die throughout the game, then you get to keep your eyes open at night and watch what's happening. So the thing is, every night these people are trusting us, and then they wake up and they see me as a mafia member open my eyes and they're like, and so there's Andy all this whole game trying to, like, everyone's like, be quiet, no one say anything the whole game. And people, it's getting more and more intense every morning, where everyone's like, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to straight up kill you when we get back home. So it keeps going, and I remember there's this one moment, a good friend of mine, one of the kids, his name is Steven Delgado. I mean, he was intense in games. And the night that I killed him off, it was bad. He was so just dead set. He's like, I can't believe you lied to me this whole, like, he was in the back with me, he lost it. And so we're playing this game, right, and it's getting closer and closer, and people are starting to whittle down, and it gets down to 4 people. The doctor, the sheriff, me, and my main man Dustin. Main man Dustin, who's been vouching for me the whole time. We have the like doctor, the sheriff convinced, because Dustin's like, no, I swear, I saw his card. There's a 7 of diamonds. I saw his card. So there's this guy. He's a sheriff. His name is Kevin Costales, and he had the King of Hearts. He stood up there as the sheriff, just believing me this whole game, and it's down to only 4. I mean, how could they? It's like, okay, it's the doctor and the sheriff, and 2 guys in the back. You've told me all along that you've seen this card. I don't know what to do. So I was like, Dustin, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm gonna have to kill you, buddy. There he is. And I sacrificed my only guy who was with me this whole game. So here we are, right? We are pulling into the parking lot of the church. And so if anyone knows, when you come back from like a middle school or a high school camp, and you're on the bus, you're screaming. Like, you're ready to go. Everything's crazy when you get, and parents are like, oh my gosh, here they are back. But we pull into this parking lot, and it is dead silent. No one is saying a word. And those poor parents were probably like, what did we do? They're poor kids. Like, they were just dead silent, because everyone, it's the middle of the night, and there I am, and I'm like, okay, well, the doctor, he can save anyone. I can't win this game. This is the night. And sure enough, that night, the sheriff, he woke up, he like pointed at me, he knew, okay, finally, I got him. This is it. I finally figured it out. And I picked someone who I thought they wouldn't save. I ended up killing them. They woke up. He's like, and they did it. Mafia won the game. Everyone loses their mind. They're all like flying out. They're all yelling at me like, you're a liar, Jesse. You lied. And I'm like, I just lost all trust of every one of these kids. But there's just this moment. I remember in the chaos of everyone running around in this bus, Kevin Costales, the sheriff, the King of Hearts, just looked at me just like, how could you? just straight face. And I'll forever remember that moment. The sheriff, this King of Hearts, just he couldn't like see it in me, and it was like, I lost something. And so I started thinking about that moment, that King of Hearts, that like ability for him to just look deep into me. And we have this verse that we're kind of going through. It's a known one. Seek the kingdom of God above all else, and live righteously, and He will give you everything you need. So I'm going to jump forward to the very end of this thing. So here's the thing that I want to tell you. This is my main point to you guys. This is the one departing thing. The King of Kings is the King of Hearts. Okay? The King of Kings is the King of Hearts. I'll come back to that. That's just like, that's where I want to go. Cool? Awesome. So I started thinking about this. The other day I was, I got to go out and get a burger and kind of think over the King of Kings and the King. And I realized I'm sitting in this burger place and I'm in a town called Kingsburg. And I'm like, okay, I'm in the right place. It's good to go. And I looked at this idea of Melech or Jehovah Melech, that is like Jesus the King. Cool? So I know maybe not everyone is like, all right, I go to church or I've read the Bible, but just stick with me. I don't need you to have read the Bible to be able to like follow through. Cool? So here's the King. And I thought of three kind of areas of the King to kind of dig into. And so one of them was, what in the world was a king when this was written? What was kings of the old time? What was kings at that time? And so during the Old Testament, there was tons and tons of kings. And there's this big time where there's a split in Judah and Israel. And there's all these kings, and that's fine. You don't need to know any of them. But, there's like King David and Solomon and all these big names. And then they just killed each other. They just pillaged and destroyed. And there was lies and exiling, and everything was all over the place. It was crazy. And so there was this whole back and forth fighting between the prophets. And then there's this, at the very end of it, there's actually two books that literally are 1st and 2nd Kings. And in it, there's this whole story. At the very bottom of that whole list, there's this guy named Jehoiakim. And there's this story at the very end. It's 2 Kings 25. And there's this whole story. I'm not even going to go into it, but there's a whole story of them destroying Jerusalem. And they talk about like taking away all their bronze stuff, which is like huge, huge things. It was literally so heavy, the amount of gold and bronze that they destroyed and took away. They just said, you know what? We can't even count how heavy and how enormous this was. And then it talks about Jehoiakim's uncle who they kill, and they like kill his like kids right in front of him, and then they like pull out his eyes. And like they do crazy, crazy stuff. And then this story happens at the end of it with this guy Jehoiakim. So Jehoiakim, who is the king, he's like the king, he's in prison in Babylon. And this whole thing of Kings ends with this story where Jehoiakim comes out, they pull him out of prison, they put him in clothes, and they give him dinner in front of all the other kings, and they say, hey, I'm going to give you food from here on out. And then that's it. They don't say anything else. I was just like, well, you got a dinner and some food. Sweet story. Like, what did that mean? Like, where did that come from? I started thinking about that moment. This guy Jehoiakim, his whole life had been destroyed. Everything had been taken. It's like this. This story is like, what if someone came in and just picked up, like, Washington, D.C., like, picked up the Washington Monument and just walked away with it? Like, what if someone went to, like, Bethany School and just was like, hey, we're just going to destroy the whole thing, and then just walk away and put you in prison? And then after being in prison for 37 years, they, like, pull you out and they're like, hey, you want to do dinner? Like, I just destroyed your school, but, like, cool, if I just give you some clothes and dinner, like, we good? Yeah? No? So there's Jehoiakim sitting there. He must have been like, what am I doing here? Why am I having dinner with this guy who destroyed my whole future? What is this? Like, what are kings? So just to put like that on the table, the idea of when you give the ability for kings to be in humans, it's just destruction and death. Like, the greatest kings led to just terrible, terrible things. So when we try to think of this idea of a king, when we put it in human terms, it just doesn't work. So I thought, well, okay, fine, cool. Let's think of another way of kings, right? So there's this statement in the Bible. They say, I don't know if you guys have heard this, but they say, the King of Kings. You guys have heard that before? Okay, so the King of Kings. So I want to do that, but can I have you guys help me with something? Is that okay? Okay, so on your table, there's a bunch of stickers. I want everyone to take just one. Sorry, just take one sticker, and I want you to put one sticker. If you have more than one thing on your paper of what is most important to you, I want you to put that heart sticker right next to the most important thing. Just put it next to the thing that is like, well, above all of these things, this is the one. Cool? So here it is. In the King of Kings, there's this idea in the Bible where it comes up in a couple different places. And so we've tried to think of like, what is the King of Kings? And just to let you know, this guy, yeah, that's not the King of Kings. This isn't it. It's like, yeah, no. And to be honest, this guy isn't it either. I don't know if anyone even knows who this is. Sue knows who this is. But this is King Charles, the newest king. This guy isn't it. This guy is not like the king above all the kings. Charles, yeah? King Charles III. So he's not it. And just to let you know, the most powerful, grandest, like dominant, compelling person in the world is just never going to stand up to the King of Kings. The King of Kings is God. He's the, like, of all the kings who is out there, he's the king that is the king above that guy. He's always going to be above. He is the king of the kingdom that we talked about in 633. He's the one and only thing in life worthwhile to seek first. In seeking God, all the needs of this life that the Lord can provide when we were just seeking after Him. So I talked about this, like, seeking after Him, and I was like, okay, well, sweet, like, that's great. What does that mean? Like, what in the world does seeking after Him mean? So that kind of got me to thinking again. And it reminded me of that moment in that game Mafia, where Kevin Costales, the sheriff, he had this king of hearts that he had pulled up. And I realized, man, like, the Lord He's the king of hearts. He's like the sheriff who had that ability to point at anyone in the game and just instantly know who they were. There was like no lie in that game that you could tell the sheriff. He would be like, no, I know who you are now. I know your heart. Like, I am the king of hearts. I know what's going on deep down. The King of Kings is the king of hearts. He is the one who has the power to do anything in this world, but He just wants you guys. He just wants your heart. He wants the chance to have a relationship that you are willing to be real. Just hand over your heart, your real, true self, just as you are right now. Your future, your life, the path that you're going to go down. He wants to love you and walk with you with that heart. So everyone, you guys have this paper in front of you, right? You wrote down these different things. All these things that are kind of like your heart's desire right now. And you even you said, oh, this is my heart. My heart is this one right here. It's the most important thing to me. I think sometimes you can't give your heart to the King of Kings when your heart is attached to something else so deeply. The King of Kings is the King of Hearts. He wants to give you and your heart a more adventurous and full life than you could ever imagine following after something else. And this doesn't mean that the things on your paper are bad. Not at all. They're honestly so awesome sometimes. But when they are just so encompassing and so consuming of all your time, you end up just not having the room for the King of Kings. So, I know you guys are all in middle school, and I haven't been in middle school in a while. And for all of the teachers here, I'm not a middle school teacher. So I'm just not. So I don't know what this is like. But if this is anything of what it's like, I just gotta be honest with you. Here's what it was for me in middle school. If I were really honest with myself when I was in middle school, on that piece of paper, I would have written something like my reputation and my desire not to be wrong. I just never wanted to be wrong in front of someone else. And honestly, I think if we took enough time, you guys would be able to dig out some deep things that you could write on that paper that's so important to you, my friend's approval or my anxiety or that cute boy or girl across the room right now, or approval of what people on social media might think of me, or my accomplishments in whatever game I'm working on right now, or just how people approve of me and my looks, or my parents' approval, or finding worth in my grades or intellect or anything like that. I don't know, whatever your heart, whatever it has it, God wants it. He can have anything in this world, but He chooses you and graciously asks for you to choose and hand it over to Him. So when I thought of who is the King of Kings, all I thought of is this. The King of Kings, this King, He's the ultimate ruler with the ultimate desire for the ultimate sacrifice of your hearts to Him. So all I wanted to tell you guys is that the King of Kings is the King of Hearts. He wants your heart, and it's so worthwhile to give it to Him. Is that cool? Awesome. All right, guys. Lord, I thank You so much for these kids. Lord, I thank You for where they're going. Lord, I thank You for these teachers as they love upon these kids. I thank You for their hearts that You're running after. And maybe today's not the day, Lord. But I know that You won't stop running after these kids in their hearts wherever they're going to go, Lord. Pray that as they slowly give over the things that are in the way, Lord, that You keep running after them and grab a hold of their hearts and just give them an adventure in life, Lord. Yeah, thank You. Amen. So, real quick, we are going to have the middle school teachers do a